Today I also have to write a lesson plan for my student that's coming on Saturday. I wanted to get it out of the way. So I usually spend about 45 minutes or more writing lesson plans for them. Today I won't though, because I'm tweaking one that I've already used with another student because he is doing the same lesson that she did a few weeks ago. Usually it just takes me a while to look at some of the exercises that I've done for the topic that they're doing, figure out if those would work for them, figure out what all I want to cover in my lecture portion of the lesson, and just write it all down and look at my notes on what I think they need in terms of this topic, if I have any, or any reminders I put to myself in my writings that I did previously on that student. A lot of the stuff I'm doing is really boring because it's just me writing or meditating or something like that, so I'm sorry that my life is apparently boring. I warned you guys on Facebook. Now I have to make an incense for Imbolg. I routinely make incense, so I'm making the incense recipe for Imbolg from Cunningham's Incense Oils and Brews. I really like this book. It has a lot of really good recipes. I end up altering them mostly. The best book I found to start off with incense making from a magical standpoint. Like I said, I alter it. I alter almost all the recipes from this book, and this one calls for frankincense, dragon's blood, sandalwood, cinnamon, and red wine. The only part of that I'm altering is I'm using blackberry wine instead of red wine. We have red wine, but blackberries are sacred to Bridget, and so I find it to be a better recipe for Imbolg and more suited to me. After I finish making the incense, I will usually put any sort of energy I need into it. So I mentioned earlier that Bray was on his way home, and he's home now. He's reading, he's getting into pagan mode before the study circle starts. But look, it's Bray! And you'll see him more later when the study circle gets here. To be silent is probably the most misunderstood of the Witch's Pyramid, because everyone seems to think that it's like you can't tell anyone anything ever about your practice, ever, or being a witch or anything. And for some people that's how they interpret it, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not necessarily what it means. It's to keep silent about certain things about your practice. It's the view that by talking about things, they start to lose power. Some people subscribe to that. Some people are going to bring it back to the burning times, which I'm much to learn about. And they're going to be like, we can't tell anyone we're a witch because there's going to be persecution, and that's not really what it's about. Some people are going to take it there, and that's fine to a certain extent, but that's not necessarily what it means.
It's really hard for me to be okay with to be silent because it depends on how you think about things. What they're talking about when they say when you talk about things it loses power is basically you're giving up the power that you're keeping for it. Like basically you're giving up the knowledge that you're supposed to be focusing on for yourself. That's not always how it works, because as we know, like when you work in covens, it's a group mind thing. It's not necessarily something that just applies to yourself. To be silent also, there's a lot of cultures, and if people worship in the way that these cultures do, Reconstructionists, anything like that, there's a lot of cultures that believe that when you speak about something it becomes more powerful. So it's really hard because a lot of people know and very easily can tell that we breathe and that words are made of air and breath gives us life, so why wouldn't we breathe out and make words? Does it not give life to other things? That's a hard one. Like, I feel like maybe when they created it, they were like, Earth, what do we do with that one? How did we put that in the pyramid?
When we think of silence, we think of Earth, because it's the keeper of all secrets, like silent as the grave. Mm-hmm. When you want to keep a secret, the best way is to bury it. And I think that's why it's related to that, plus it's so stable. It's grounding your secrets, it's grounding what you want to keep safe. So it seems the most appropriate, I guess, for some people.
It is appropriate because modern paganism, especially this is the Witch's Pyramid, it's what it's called. Modern witches, we have the idea that keeping secrets isn't a very important thing to us. Like, it's not that we want to hold information from others. Some people do. That's not true. But it's not like we want to hold information from others. It's more that we want to, when we keep it for ourselves, when we don't let that leave us, when we keep that idea always within ourselves, and we don't share it with others, that it gains more power. To be silent is something important to us, especially when you're talking about covens, because when you keep a coven secret, basically you're keeping the secret of all the covens that came before you who taught you what you knew. You're keeping the secret of all the people in your coven, which these are people you generally hold relationships with. Some say that are more powerful than family relationships. So this is like something really important to people. To me, there are things that I keep for myself. However, I'm a solitary practitioner. Some things that are really personal between me and the divine. Some things really personal between me and the gods that I keep to myself, because that's something that only we share. It has power when I share it, but it is more personal and sacred to me when I don't share it. And in that way, it's maybe, I don't want, it's not like, it's like I don't want to give it away to someone who it's not as important to. Because it's so sacred, I don't want to share that with people who feel like it's not important to them. Like, I can tell lots of truths, but the things that I tell, like, speak with the gods about. It's about with them. It's not about with humans. Or
it just means, like, you're not supposed to, like, go out and brag to people. Like, maybe especially people that aren't, into...
Right.
And that's another common belief about
to, like, just go up to people and, I'm a witch and this is what I do. You know what I mean? Just, like, brag about it to try to, maybe they just mean, like, stay silent. Like, you're not supposed to, like, force your beliefs on other people or just go off, like, bragging because you think it's cool. You know what I mean?
Well, I've read, too, like, specifically about a spell. If you're doing a spell or something, you don't want to go out and talking about it. Not because you'll be taking energy away from it, but because you'd be putting the wrong kind of energy into it. Like, if you do a spell, you sent out this energy, and this is what,
when people take...
whatever. And so when they go on and start either worrying about it or talking to people or this, that, and the other, it's like, well, you're adding other stuff that wasn't what you had sent out initially, so it kind of dilutes what you did. So that makes sense.
It's like adding more consciousness that aren't thinking about the same thing. Like, they're not thinking about it in the way that you want them to, and you can't really be... Like, when you do a spell, it's a very personal thing, so it needs to be personal.
I think I've read, too, like, where... Like, if you, like, share a bunch of stuff like that, and, like, people put their negative energy into it, and, like, you're getting their negative energy into whatever, so, it's changing it.
So now I'm leaving the meeting a little early to do my class that starts at 9 o'clock. I have to get set up, and there's going to be a little bit of footage from that. I'm not sure how interesting it's going to be, but we'll see.